teach me to dance. Will you?
Dance? Did you say dance?
Welcome to Own It, Your Business in Your Life, with Nicola and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Good morning to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. It's a cloudy day in Greece.
Oh.
Still quite warm though.
Quite nice here, but our daily routine for a very long time now has been lovely early morning sun, cloud over by lunchtime, get quite chilly. Yes, that's because I've managed to work out how my new headset works with Zoom. I had to make them speak to each other.
Well, it's working wonderfully. You sound very clear.
Oh, marvellous.
Yeah. So how's your week been then?
Well, before we start, for the benefit of you and and particularly the gentle listener, today is the 150th show! Yay!
Oh,
and I know you don't think it's significant, but I do. It airs on your birthday.
Oh my God.
Come on, that's a nice synchronicity. It's your birthday on the 29th, and this is our 150th show. Yay!
I can't believe it's 150 shows. That's outrageous.
Well, actually, it shows a lot more commitment than you and I normally manage to, gather together, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm actually astonished that I've reached the grand old age of 56. Because I've lived my whole life under the illusion I was going to drop dead quite early, because my dad did. And
just goes to show, doesn't it, how ridiculous your fantasies are, Nicola Cairncross.
And have I ever told you the story about how when I was sitting talking to my stepfather about who we think of as my father, and he was saying, I said, well, I've been expected to drop dead for a few years now, and he said, well, why is that then? And I said, well, because I thought my dad died at 42. I think I must have been getting up to around the 42 mark. And I said, because all year I've been expected to drop dead because my dad died at 42. He said, oh, you daft tart, he died at 32.
Well, not just that, but you don't follow your father's DNA, you follow your mother's when it comes to your health. Women, mothers, men, fathers.
Oh, well, she's still going strong in health.
Well, then, you see, I rest my case, you mad old stick. Anyway,
this week I'll be getting some exercise because it's the 100th anniversary of Nikos Kazantzakis, who, as you probably would know, Judith.
You surely don't mean the 100th, darling. It's about the 50th since the book was published. He can't have been 50 when he published it, was he?
Well, let me just finish my story, and you will discover all the details you ever want to know.
Well, it's just you gave me these tips in advance. So.
I know, and you're ahead of yourself. Listen, he was a Nobel Prize for Literature winner, and he wrote, of course, among many, many, many other things, Zorba the Greek. Now, Zorba the Greek was the novel was released in 1946, but 100 years ago, in 1917, he came to live in Stupa at Columbia Beach.
Yes, okay.
So, while he was there, he wrote Zorba the Greek, and he was trying to do the tin mining in the hills behind Stupa. Everyone thinks of him as being a Cretan, because, of course, he did live on Crete for a long time. But no, Stupa is the place, and there is a village-wide, in fact, a 3-village-wide dance-off on Friday night.
A dance-off!
Yes. They're going, it's a big deal. Everyone along Calogria Beach, Stupa Main Beach, Cardamilli and Agnic are going to be lining up at, what time is it, Sarah? 5:30? It's 5:30, and we're going to be doing the Zorba the Greek dance. Sarah and I have been watching it on YouTube, trying to get some clues. And they're going to be doing drone footage and all sorts, aerial shots of everyone dancing all along the seafront in Greece. It's going to be hilarious.
No, sorry, I need to recap slightly. What is it? Is it a 3-village dance-off? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, that's exciting enough. What is it actually the 100th anniversary of?
Him arriving in 1917 to live in Calogria Beach.
Okay.
One of the nicest beaches in Stupa.
Okay.
And the house he lived in is still there, you know, and you can actually go and stay in it, as a lady from the Daily Mail did, in the article link I've sent you, which is the information.
Which I've read, yes. I've seen the film, I've read the book. They're both absolute classics. Actually, his most accessible book. The rest of it's quite hard going, to be honest.
It won 3 Academy Awards, and it was
God! Anthony Hopkins and Alan Bates and Irene Pappas. It's a marvellous movie. It's life-affirming, and the book is the same.
Well, I haven't seen the movie, but there are lots of places in Stupa screening it on Friday night. So
brilliant! Is it black and white?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I remember it. My mum was a real film buff, and that's one of the ones she would have got me to watch with her on a Saturday afternoon when I was probably a teenager. I mean, fantastic film.
And there is some really gorgeous footage of Anthony Quinn when he was really quite old on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Teaming up with, I think it was Nikos Kanzan.
Ah, okay.
And them doing the dance as quite old men, and it really is quite lovely.
And it can be done as old men, can't it? Although it does get quite ferocious.
It does get quite fast. Well, anyway, it's going to be. We had a demonstration from one of our favourite waiters last night, and it's going to be a right old laugh. I think.
Brilliant. So this is the week of anniversaries. It's your birthday. It's the 100th year of Nikos Xanthis. How do we say it? Kazantzakis. Okay, lovely. And it's the first anniversary. This is my one thing about my week. Are you ready for me to talk about my one?
I am.
Well, September the 25th, which is Monday, the Monday before this goes out live, but the Monday after you and I are talking, is the first anniversary of my moving to my low-carb way of eating.
Oh, my word.
And the only change that I've made in those 12 months is just switching mostly to no more than 20 carbs of carbohydrate a day, which is low. And today I am 2 to 3 pounds over 5 stone lighter.
Wow. 5 stone in a year, that's incredible.
Well, it was 3 stone to begin with, and then 2 stone much slower. But I am celebrating, and I am very grateful for discovering the low-carb lifestyle, because it got me to realise, and it got me to get rid of, a lifelong addiction to carbohydrate, and that really isn't to overstate it. So I know quite a lot of addicts of various things, booze mainly, food, yes, Diet Coke, yes. I even know a reformed heroin addict, as it happens. And the things that addicts have in common, whatever your drug of choice, is very similar. So I can talk to this rehabbed heroin addict for hours about, me grovelling through the cupboards looking for a biscuit, and him doing altogether sleazier things to get a hit. Yeah. But, a biscuit can still put me over the top now, by the way. But I have discovered, did you know there's such a thing as a low-carb biscuit?
No.
I mean, who knew? And Nicola, they're quite delicious. They are, as we addicts say, out of stock at my supplier at the moment.
I can imagine.
But anyway, that's marvellous. You're marvellous. Nikos thingy is marvellous. It's marvellous. It's a week of anniversaries.
Good stuff. So what's fueled your fire this week?
Oh, I've got 2. Do you want to go first, or shall I go?
Yeah, no, you do one, and then I'll go in the middle like a sandwich, and then...
Oh, a sandwich, a fueled your fire, fiery sandwich. Okay, so my first one is, I spoke to a bloke this week who has been in my life on and off for 13 years, and you introduced me to him. And he booked in for what is becoming his annual Pay What You Want review. And he's the guy, in fact, you'll read about him in my newsletter tomorrow. He's the guy who's paid me the largest ever Pay What You Want fee, bringing my hourly rate that he pays me pretty close to what some of my small business big magic clients pay to work with me for a year. And we were discussing, he and I, trust and flow and prosperity and being in the zone, whereas 13 years ago, he and I were all, in fact, I met him in your front room at the Acacia. He and I were all push and hustle and force. And he said I was the only person he could talk to about things like this, and that's such an honour. That's my first one. So being able to have a thoughtful relationship where particularly a male client, although this man is very in touch with his female side, particularly a male client can talk to me about things that he can't talk to another living soul about, is the first fuel of my fire.
Very nice. Well, I a long time ago did a recording for a podcast called The Bomb, BOMMB, with Tom Poland, who's got a website called Leadsology, and he's an Australian. He talks very fast in a very strong Australian accent, and it's quite funny at the beginning where he's trying to understand me saying "Shoreham by Sea," and I have to get quite posh to get it over. But no, it was the thing was it was a 5-minute interview. It was a bit longer than that, but he's edited it down to under 5 minutes. And it really was a real challenge to answer his questions in a way that gave value to the listeners, and hopefully get them a bit excited about their own marketing. But it's just come out today, and I'm already getting emails from people in Australia who listen to it. Obviously,
it's a very interesting concept. The 5-minute interview. I think it's attractive because none of us really have an attention span anymore, and we dole out an hour a week, and that's not everybody's cup of tea. But in the Sunday papers, they do those interviews with people in the back pages where people, celebrities and famous people answer questions very briefly. You could read the interview in 5 minutes. Yeah. I think there's value in 5 minutes, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And it forces you to not waffle.
It does. And did you work out what you wanted to get across in advance, or did you just roll with it?
Well, I'm actually not bad at being interviewed on the hoof, but
okay.
I'm quite good for a soundbite. So I might have thought about it in a nanosecond before I logged on.
Yes, I'm writing this down. Quite good for a soundbite. It's quite a good thing to know about oneself and to be available for, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things I want to manifest in the next year is lots more podcast interviews. I will say yes to being on anyone's podcast because you just never know who's listening.
So you're a podcast tart. I mean, that's what Gary Vee does. He's on every podcast. There's that woman we know, of course, Mark Womany's girlfriend / fiance who does this for a fee.
People up. That's right. She fixes people up.
Yeah.
Having said that, a lot of people don't like the approach that's used by people who fix up for other people. And
carry on. Sorry.
I get lots of very unresearched requests.
Oh, don't you see how many people offer themselves to be on our podcast? I get all the, I don't know whether you see them as well. I get all the admin emails from our podcast website, and endlessly people like her, but not doing as good a job as her, are offering us guests for our podcast. And I don't even bother to write back to them anymore. But if they actually even listen to one episode, or even they read the blurb, they'd say we don't have guests because there's two of us. Where are we going to squeeze in a guest?
They wouldn't get a word in edgewise.
Well, I just delete them. I mean, because as you actually say, it's ill-researched. Now, funnily enough, I did have an approach this week from a man. It was an approach like that, not about podcasting, but he had researched me. He'd been to my website and he'd looked at the names of my groups and he offered me something and he was interested in my opinion, and I didn't want what he was offering, but I was able to say thank you so much for sending me a well-researched and professional, whatever you call that, pitch.
Yeah. And the other thing, just on my bit, is that I've had a consultancy inquiry this week, which is rather nice. And also, I've had my first ever client directly, specifically, only from the podcast. And I know because I've gone back. She said, I've been listening to you for 2 years. A friend recommended I listen to the podcast. I've been listening for 2 years. And she literally just came through, found my sales page, signed up on the spot, and she hadn't opted in for anything else. I could see from her what's the word I'm looking for, her journey through my Infusionsoft, that she literally just listened to the podcast for 2 years and then signed up.
And that was enough. Brilliant. Yeah. But for gentle listeners and for you and me, it is valuable to know that somebody needs to know about you for 2 years before they send you any money.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's quite short. Some of my clients take 5 years, and there was that memorable client of yours, ours in the money gym, took 7 years, had to pay off her debts before she became a client, if you remember.
Yeah, absolutely. The other interesting thing is she's been listening for 2 years. She's been listening to me going through my convoluted agonizing about who my ideal clients were and all that stuff, and she still come.
Yeah, well, I don't call it authenticity anymore, but being real is still very attractive.
It is indeed. Exactly. So what was your second fueled your fire bit?
Yes. I saw, and again, I'm telling you a lot of things today that are going to be in my newsletter tomorrow, but I saw a lovely little meme or picture with some interesting text. I don't think I'd call it a meme, this one, on Facebook from Forbes, saying that in the next 5 years, 79 million people will open a home-based business. And given that it's Forbes, I'm guessing they mean USA people. And that's about 25% of their population. And over 5 years, that's about 5% of their population. And obviously, it could be a side hustle, but still a very useful and encouraging statistic for both your business and mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if that's just the Americans, then there must be a proportionate amount of Brits doing it.
Quite much smaller, about 6 times smaller, actually, but doesn't matter. Brits are not our audience exclusively, are they? They're about 50% of mine.
Yeah, Aussies, Australians, definitely.
Yes, English speakers, yeah, Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a few people in Europe as well.
Yeah.
Marvellous, that's very encouraging. So what's 79 billion divided by 6 or million, whatever it was?
No, I've done it by 6, by our population, you mean?
Yeah, you said it was about...
Yeah, I don't know, 80 divided by 6. 6 into 8 goes 1 with 2 left over, 3 sixes are 18. 13 million over 5 years. You've got to divide the 13 by 5 then. 5 goes 2 point something million people. We're extrapolating and assuming an awful lot here, because I don't even know that stat was Americans, because it was rather woolly. But I'm thinking Forbes, I'm thinking America.
Yeah. But that is, I mean, we don't need all of those, do we?
No, we don't. We so don't. I say that to my clients all the time. No, we just need a small handful.
Yes, a small handful indeed.
And also, your small handful isn't my small handful. So nobody's in competition with anybody. We just need a small handful. A small, luscious handful of gorgeous, perfect, ideal clients.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not even on the drugs yet either, but there we go. I'm sounding a bit like it, aren't I?
Here at Own It, we personally believe that leaders are readers, but sometimes it's just not convenient to read and you'd rather listen instead. For listeners of Own It the podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. A couple of titles we've picked out for you particularly are Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg or Crush It, Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion by Gary Vaynerchuk. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ownit. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ownit for your free audiobook. You can pick one of the ones I've chosen for you, or you can choose something else. Enjoy your listen. Last week was faster.
Do you have, Nicola, I'll tell you why in a minute, why last week was faster. Do you have a client challenge of the week for us?
I do, Judith.
Bring it on.
It's a revisit of an old theme.
Okay.
Because obviously, that which is most general is also most personal.
Yes.
As Shepard used to say. People who don't pay you on time, where you don't have any, what's the word I'm looking for? They're going to pay, they're good for it, and they're going to pay, they just don't seem to have the same, what's the word I'm looking for? Dedication to paying on the same day each month. And you haven't got any leverage, because if you do whatever it would take to make them realise that you're not happy with them anymore, you would cut off your nose to spite your face and you wouldn't make the earnings that you are making. And we're not talking about small amounts of money here. So it is, does have an impact on the cash flow when you're expecting £3,000 to come in at some point during some week and it doesn't. So I just wanted to revisit this topic and ask what people can do about clients and or affiliates who don't pay you on time and who ignore your emails and your messages and make you feel really quite cross.
Well, if I could put my finger on the single reason why I sold my accountancy business, it was this, that my clients didn't pay my bills on time. And what is the point?
What is the point of what?
What is the point of a business where your clients don't pay your bills on time? There's just no point, is there? I mean, we love it, but we don't love it enough to do it for free. No. So I got rid of my accountancy business because the business model where you sent an invoice and waited to be paid, we'll come back to affiliates later because it's the same principle. Where you are expecting to be paid and not paid is just a broken business model on their part or ours. And I've gone to something now, and my 2017 iteration of it is full payment in advance or nout, because debt collecting is horrid.
It is, and I don't understand why it winds me up so much, because I do my accounts every week, and every week on the week where the money's supposed to come, it's the first thing I think about in the morning. Has that money come? And it's not even as if, if there's money in my bank account, it doesn't really matter whether it comes today or not. It's just the fact it's taking up a bit of mental space in my head that I really could use for something else.
Well, do you want me to give you some woo-woo answers to that? Well, in fact, don't answer that question. I'm going to give you some woo-woo answers to that. So there are a couple of things I want in my life right now. One of them is financial, like you, where I am expecting to receive a significant, two areas of my life where I'm expecting to receive what I regard as significant sums of money, one in my business and one outside my business. And another thing where I want to manifest this celebrity who's going to write the foreword for my book. And I don't lose any sleep or anxiety or give any mental scarcity to that anymore, or even getting cross about it. I go either, wouldn't it be wonderful if, when you get back from your holidays, you reply to my PM, or I just genuinely believe if those three things are going to happen, and I have invited them to happen, I have a relationship with the celeb, I have a relationship with the client who's just about to pay me 4 figures, and I've been tickling along the other thing. If they're going to happen, they're just going to drop into my life. So I don't agitate anymore. I do quite a lot of woo-woo things around money. I've started tithing again, giving away 10%, which demonstrates the trust in the universe that the money will come. And it's a quite scary thing because you have to go first. Now, let's get down to the business aspects of this, which is, I know it's somebody that pays you affiliate income, and I have somebody I have 2 people. One of them's Wealth Dynamics, which is quite small and intermittent, and another one is Profit Accumulator. And Profit Accumulator is a business run, as we know when we were students, by a very efficient young man. And they pay me on the 1st of every month without fail, and have done for more than 2 years. How long ago was it we started doing that? Every day on the 1st of the month without fail. And what that tells me about him is he's running a decent business and he's got a decent value system. And what it tells me about your affiliate is that it's a bit chaotic still. Now, my experience is that what you put yourself through, being a bit grumpy about it and having to ask emails and not getting answers, and all of that doesn't actually make a heck of the difference to when or not your woman is going to pay you. But my clients ask me about this all the time. Collecting invoices and chasing up unpaid bills is a horrid thing. Let me explain why. Because your relationship with her and mine with my clients is a 2-way contract, and you've met your bit and your affiliate payer hasn't met their bit. So it's a mean and unfair business practice of theirs, especially given that they've been paid already.
Yeah, a month and a half ago.
Yes, quite. It's broken, and that's why I sold my accountancy business. That's what I'm telling me. And you've got no power to fix it. So either you do what we've talked about, which is you build up this nice little slush fund on the side, and you kind of use that in lieu of this, so that when you are paid by this affiliate, it doesn't matter one jot. You can't lose. You can't put any emotion or scarcity or annoyance, or you can't put any of that into it because it's just harming you. She couldn't give a flying tuppenny bit.
But it's like, okay, so that's all very well, but what if you're a business who's got, I don't know, 10, 20 clients in a month that you do jobs for, and one of them...
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it anymore. That's why I sold my accountancy business. That's the point. So a client this week, a brand new client, September's lucky winner. I spoke to her on Tuesday. Because it was the first day in her business where she didn't have the little tinies at home. They'd gone to childcare or whatever. And she said, should I take payment in advance? Yes. How should I do that? A third. Right. So a third before you start. Yeah. A third at some point in the middle. Yeah. What's your lever at the end? She said, well, they don't get the copyright unless I've done it. Fine. Got it. You've got, but actually, do you know what it is? It's not going to help you, Nicola, with your dilemma, but it is going to help our listeners. Where this goes wrong is in the absence of a decent conversation at the beginning when we take on a client, because we're too embarrassed to discuss money with them. So we haven't discussed our terms with them. We don't know what the payment process is in their office. And actually, in your example, there is no process in their office. That's the problem.
There has been to be fair, there was in the past. It always came on the 10th. And I got used to it coming on the 10th. Now it's, what is it? It's 20.
Well, you see, I think that's a fair and reasonable expectation. You having done your work 2 months ago, that your money comes on the 10th. Now, your choice is whether to find another source of either the same type or the equivalent type of income where the person pays you on time without fail and you can bank on it. And that's the only sort of client any of us wants.
Yes.
And because it's about values. If they don't appreciate that you've done your work and remunerate you, then they don't have values that are aligned with ours.
Mm.
And, however, having said that, forget your example, if I may. I want to go back to a proper commercial client of mine who does invoice, say, 10 people a month. You need to know, because don't forget, I've been the lady in the accounts department on the other end. And in the real world where you're the lady in the accounts department on the other end, your job is not to spend the company's money. Your job is to hang on to it as long as possible, managing the client's cash flow. But when I was in that role, if somebody in the office came to me and said, look, Judith, I know we don't pay except for 30 days, but could you make an exception for this person? Because A, they're a solopreneur, B, we like them, and C, we want to look after them. Every time I saw that person's invoice, provided it had brought to me timely and signed off by the right person in the company, bang, it would go on the pay run this week.
Yeah.
So you've got to get yourself in that place. And no solopreneur should be offering 28 days, because if you then start to chase on, say, 29, 30, 31, and they've lost their invoice, you've got to send it again, and somebody's got to sign it off, and it's got to go to the accounts department, and then the MD is the only one that can authorize it. You're now looking at another 28 days. You've got to organize 7 days, and your client contact, the person that's hired you within the business, cannot abdicate themselves from the responsibility of making sure from their end that you are paid on time. Because that's this two-way contract. You do the work, they organise, you get paid for the work.
Yeah.
And now I sold my business because my clients wouldn't do it. So that's it, not doing that anymore. Move over. So we opened a travel agency, because in the travel industry and the rock music gig ticket industry, you get nothing unless you pay for it fully in advance. I didn't want that problem in my life ever again, because it's painful.
Yeah, it is. And
so given that your affiliate income is a nice fat chunk quite often, if I were you, I would do exactly what you hinted to me earlier, which is you just build up a cushion so it's irrelevant.
And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put people through instead of sending traffic straight to them, I'm going to put people through a squeeze page, which might well mean that I get, that they get less traffic. I get more opt-ins on my end first.
So that could be a value for you, even if not initially monetary.
Yes, because I'll start training them on how
and might result in reduced sales for them, which could be a lever for them to come back and say, "Oh, Nicola, why has it dropped off?" Or because you're not paying me on time.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can do, is to add value from that traffic to my own business.
Yeah, I mean, given that your person isn't paying you on time and they've had the cash flow in advance, to me, as an accountant, that suggests their own cash flow is wobbly, because they're doing what my restaurant clients used to do. In a restaurant, you pay tonight, but you don't pay the butcher and the vegetable person until later down the line. If you're then squeezed and you can't pay those bills, you're not very profitable.
I find that impossible to believe of this particular example. So
well, there you go. So actually, then it's willful or negligent or both.
Yeah,
which is not nice, is it?
No, and it just makes you feel like you're not, it brings up feelings of not being worth it.
Well, my point is it doesn't need to. So you corrected yourself mid-sentence. It makes me feel, it brings up feelings. It doesn't need to. You could just disconnect that now. You just think, oh, she's such a incompetent or poor business manager. It's all about her. It's nothing about you. Okay. Now, let's just go to why emails are not replied. Either she's rushed off her feet and hasn't got enough admin support, or like 98% of the world, she's embarrassed to talk about money. I mean, you and I are such call a spade merchants. I'd rather have a conversation where she says to me, I'd rather say, what's the real reason why you're not paying me on time? If I understood the real reason, I wouldn't put myself through all this frustration.
Yeah. I might do that, actually. I might just ask her that. I've offered to help. Is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything I can do to make it easier for you?
Just tell me the truth, I'd go for. Because actually, if her cash flow's wobbly, you don't want to be an affiliate of hers anyway.
No.
Because that's going to fall over. That business is going to fall over sooner or later.
There's going to be nothing so annoying as not getting paid.
Affiliate income in the pipeline. Absolutely. Yeah.
I might as well cut off the supply right now.
Well, it's just something to think about. It's not an either or. There might be a place in the middle. You often say this on the podcast, and you're right. In the absence of a good conversation, but she's not making herself available for that conversation, is she? No. Right. People are embarrassed to talk about money. We know this, but it doesn't need to bring up any feelings in you. You've done nothing wrong. It's all her.
Yes. Good.
Okay. You've done your bit. You've put business through her system. She should be very grateful to you. She should be looking after you.
Yeah, really.
Which is why my profit accumulator man pays me on the 1st of every month without fail. Because why? What's the polite word for piss off? Why disincentivize your sales force? I couldn't think of the polite word.
I know, but it's amazing how many people do, even in big business, isn't
Well,
it?
they're numpties. They need educating by us. Perhaps one or other of us, or both of us, should write a blog post about this, about how important affiliates are. Now, this is another important point for you and me, because I want an army of affiliates selling my book. We've got to look after them. They're our sales force.
Absolutely.
And also, all the affiliate management thingies hooked up to PayPal can automate this.
Yes, it is. And when you think, I mean, it's not just... You get paid as an affiliate up to a certain point in the sales funnel. Beyond that point, when they go on to sell their one-to-one stuff, you don't get paid for that. So the highest ticket items are the ones you're not getting paid for. So by not paying your affiliates on time on the 50% that they're due on the lower ticket items, you're actually cutting off a flow of business to your high ticket items, which are the ones where you make all the profit.
It's just horribly scarce, isn't it? The whole thing is horribly scarce. And, you know, if I were on her end, I'd be seeing my income come in from, you know, leads generated by my affiliates.
Yeah.
And I'd be not spending their thing. I'd be paying them faster, actually, than yours are paying you. I mean, actually, profit accumulator, to be fair, anything I sell in September, I don't get paid for until the 1st of November. But I know I'm going to get paid on the 1st of November because I've got 2 years' experience of that now.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the point. Imagine if that suddenly started changing and they started paying.
Well, I wouldn't like it. In fact, I'd stop being their affiliate, because it for me, it denotes values. Now, there's another clever thing that they do. They don't only just pay me on the 1st of the month without fail, but they absorb the charge, which means I only lose 2%, not the 3 point something that PayPal typically deduct.
Oh, that's very abundant of them, isn't it?
Well, exactly. Well, it comes out of my whack, but it's only 2%. It's a flat fee, not the 3 point something.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have talked about this before, and you know, Phoebe's going through the same thing. You know, she's having to learn how to talk to clients about money in advance.
Yes.
You know, because it's as we talked about on a previous episode, it's always more painful talking about money after the event.
Oh, yes, because then people are on the back foot. They feel defensive and they start complaining that there's something the matter with your work. Well, at least they can't do that in your affiliate example. But that's where they go if you poke them too hard. They back up into defensive and then they attack.
Yeah.
It's horrid, but it's all our fault for not doing it right in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not in your example, it isn't.
Yeah, but exactly. And I wanted to, because I knew that clients out there, people listening to this, would still be experiencing problems with clients not paying. So
yeah,
it's worth talking about on a regular basis. Word of the week, then, Judith.
It's trust, going back to my chap. Trust that we're all right, that we have everything we need, and that we can float in abundance and prosperity. Oh, actually, it relates to yours as well. Yeah, so don't go into that negative spiral caused by her behaviour. Just trust that it'll plop in.
It'll work out.
Yeah.
My word is evoke.
Ooh, nice one.
Yes, I've been watching. I went to Write Club yesterday, and I was watching. We watched this thing called Great Courses. Do you know where?
Well, yes, you told us about it. It's lovely. Yeah.
And anyway, he was talking yesterday about evocation and evoke, and I wanted to share. It's all about showing, not telling, and I didn't really understand what that meant. But what it means is, don't use generalities. Be specific about details and emotions that evoke the feeling that you are actually in the scene. So it's to call out. It comes from I think it's a Greek word called evocare.
It does mean calling out. You're right. Yeah.
Call out or draw out from the reader's imagination. So what you do is you write a lot more detail, and the reader meets you halfway, because you're drawing on their own previous experiences. And by saying something, like about a smell or, using descriptive words, their imagination leaps to work and they meet you halfway. And that's where you get that whole dreamlike state of reading. And the best writers evoke a feeling that you're in the scene with them because they're evoking your own emotions. And I thought it was really interesting.
Well, the show don't tell thing is fascinating, isn't it? Because it goes to how good a writer one is. I cannot resist in my newsletter telling in order that people don't miss the point. But it would be so much more powerful if I just showed and let them get the point themselves.
Yeah, and I think this is really important from a copywriting point of view as well, because it's a bit like the whole, don't just list the features, talk about the benefits, because that's where people feel. What are you laughing at?
I'm like, I never can understand the difference between features and benefits. I can never, no matter how many times people explain it to me, I can never understand it. I get it, but I can't retain it. It's so funny.
Well, I think it's the little bit that goes underneath the feature that says how.
Please don't explain it to me anymore. Okay, but go on with your point. That was why I was laughing.
That's it. It was just. I just thought it was interesting because a lot of when we critique each other's writing in Write Club, that some of them say to me, "Show, not tell," and I didn't actually a clue what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Ditto, I didn't know what an adverb was yesterday.
Well, you were a bit dodgy on the CSE, weren't you?
I actually got grade one in O level in English, but God knows how.
Well, yes. Well, there you go. English language or English literature?
Both. I got a grade one in both.
Oh, all right. So you always loved reading and writing.
Yes, I must always just do it naturally without knowing what adverbs are.
Yeah, I think if you brought up speaking English, you didn't really pay much attention to adverbs.
No, probably not. What's your word then?
I've done it. Trust was mine.
Oh, yes. So obviously you wasn't listening at that point.
No, quite. I don't expect it, Nicola. Honestly, I don't expect you to listen to me.
I'm doing my best.
I'm so over that.
Project updates then before I
Yeah. Well, a great deal of frustration on my part, which explains what you said to me earlier about being more muted this week, is because I have this dreadful backache, which is sciatica, which is preventing me from sitting at my desk to finish the book. I've done all the core writing and I'm 50% precisely through the editing so that I can send it to the proofreading team before it goes to the design and print guy. And hopefully if I rest up enough this week, I'll be able to put in a longer day tomorrow and probably some bits on the weekend. Rest is the only thing that helps, and I have to do it horizontally. But I can't do writing, editing from a lying down position, which is a shame because I was making such good time. But today, arriving from Amazon is two things I thought I'd never order, but it is amazing what pain will do to a girl. A Pilates balloon to sit on at my desk and a standing up thing to go on the top, because standing up is something I can do. It's sitting down I can't do.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So what causes sciatica then?
It's a trapped nerve sciatica, but oh God, it's exquisite pain. I've had it 3 times in my life. One was in 1992, and that one, it went down my leg and it was just awful. And every time you move, it's like, ooh, ah, it's like that kind of thing. And I've had it twice in 2017. So whatever the lesson is, woo-woo, I didn't learn it it happened on my birthday this year. I don't know if you can remember, April the 27th. I was in agony for about 3 days. Well, I'm on day 6 or 8 for this, but good news. Haven't had any drugs since Saturday afternoon, so I'm managing it without painkillers. So it must be better, because last week I couldn't have borne it.
Excuse me while the Greek Air Force goes overhead.
Yeah, as long as they're not supporting Donald Trump in his war against North Korea, we're laughing. But I have found a sort of torture rack which I can hire for a month if necessary and lie on it, and it sort of stretches everything in your back, and it's called the mobilizer.
Oh, sounds good.
Well, so far I haven't gone for that. I've gone for the Pilates ball and the standing up desk, but we'll see.
Standing up desks are very good. I must fashion something here, actually.
Yes, a cardboard box was where I was going to go first. But anyway, now tell me, what is it you want to tell me in the PU section yourself?
I was just having a look at the Own It podcast, where our 3-month trend is up strongly again, which is great. Still up strongly. We now regularly on the first day of any episode get regularly over 200 downloads, and then it carries on from there. So that's quite encouraging. And as I say, the other thing I want to tell you about was my 12-week challenge with Kate Cotter. Yes. That's going really well. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. She's such a sport, she doesn't mind people talking, seeing what's going on at all. She's got clients in week 3 of just sharing content, and And she's got 3 speaking inquiries this week as well. So it's really going profoundly well. And we're spending £10 a day. So £5 a day is going on boosting her content to interested parties. And there was a whole list of people sharing the ads to other people this week as well. So that's fantastic. So, you know, people share an ad, it means you're not paying for that ad to be shared. And then also it's the other £5 a week is spent promoting her free gift offer to the people who've watched her videos more than 50% of the way through. And I'm just starting the same process with Phoebe, actually, because Phoebe's just set up a new local business page called Phoebe's Film and Edit. And so I'm doing exactly the same for her. I'm setting up a little thing to promote her videos that she's done for a local dentist and her other videos she's done for business owners. And I'm boosting those, and then I'm setting up an audience of people who watch them more than 50% of the way through, and then I'm going to promote her page to those people to get paid.
Well, can I just say in here, Kate, she listens to our podcast, doesn't she?
She does, I think so.
And Kate will know, as a regular listener, that how averse I am to video, but I watched one of hers this week, not forever, but I think she looks absolutely bloody fantastic on video. I don't know what her problem is about vomit or whatever. What's it she says? Puke.
Puke, she goes.
Yes.
But she's just scared, but she does it anyway.
Well, you look great, Kate. You look great, you sound great. Don't worry, love.
I know. It's more about what her peers say about it.
Yes, no, I understand that. Yeah, all of my clients do you remember when I did the 30-day challenge with John Williams? Lots of people were still in jobs and they were terrified of what their peers would think.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But there you go.
Well, it's not, because we've never had a job, have we? So we haven't got peers like that.
No, I suppose not. People who are critical.
Well, it's more. Well, yes, in her world, I understand the type of criticism that it is. In their world, when my clients had day jobs still, it's why people in day jobs watch The Apprentice and sneer. It's because they don't like people who try and change their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that? I mean, why do people sneer at people who try?
Well, the German word is Schadenfreude. They want you to fall on your face so they can sneer. It's because they haven't got the to do it themselves, isn't it?
Yeah, good point.
And we make them feel frightened by the fact that we're doing it. So much easier for them to sneer at us and say, oh, you people just prat around all day, and why aren't you living in the big house already, and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah. Right. Who or what's impressed you this week?
Well, mine's a bit of a downbeater one. Is yours upbeat? Because if yours is upbeat, we'll end on upbeat, and I'll go first, shall we?
Yeah, you go first.
Well, as you know, little sob here, my dream Caribbean island of St. Martin was 100% wiped out by Hurricane Irma only 2 weeks ago. And this week I've exchanged emails with my French friend Julie, who lives there, and she and her family were airlifted to safety in Guadeloupe, but they have lost absolutely everything they own. They only have what they stand up in, including the villa that I lived in for a month the last time I went there. But they are all safe and well, which is what is important. And now they begin the process of negotiating with the insurance company and rebuilding their lives. But it was a very sad exchange of emails, although, of course, I was thrilled to hear that they're all safe and well. And then some news came that a man who lives there, who I follow, who takes beautiful photographs and has a lovely business model of selling photographs of my island, he died this week. Whether or not he died in the storm or as a result of the storm, I don't know. But the regular newsletter that I receive from the island, which comes once a week, says that things are getting back up to speed much faster than anybody could have anticipated. And that 22 years ago, when they last had a hurricane this big, it was smaller actually, but Hurricane Luis, the electric company, the much maligned electric company, had laid cables underground after that nasty experience, which meant that the electric power could come back on this time very fast. And the electric company also sends the water, but the water hasn't come back on. There is water to drink, but not much more. And there are stories of people being airlifted out. I mean, airlines from all over the world have sent aeroplanes. The planes come full of supplies and go back with people. Royal Jordanian, which is Jordan in the Middle East, for instance, why on earth would they send an aeroplane? And just out of humanitarian reasons. And when these people were airlifted by JetBlue up to New York. They hadn't had a hot meal in 5 days, some of these people. And the first thing that happened when they landed at JFK was that the staff in humanitarian, I could cry, honestly, in humanitarian T-shirts had laid out food and drink for them to eat the first thing when they got there, because they've been without so much for so long. But anyway, there do seem to be reasonable amounts of bottled water, and all the tourists have been taken off the island, which includes 6,000 Americans. But what's impressed me is they are going ahead with their annual Heineken Regatta, which happens in the first week of March. So on the 1st to the 4th of March 2018, they are going to have their biggest PR event of the year. So that gives them an astonishingly ambitious deadline, given that all vegetation and all buildings have been lost. So the island's sort of brown and stumpy, no leaves on the palm trees. But their indomitable spirit is what has impressed me, that you would rebuild when you've lost everything.
Yeah, well, I suppose you've got no choice.
Well, you haven't. No, you haven't, except to move somewhere notionally safer, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes, I can't imagine what that is like.
Oh, well, my parents had some friends. My dad was in the Royal Marines, as you know, and he was very close friends with a naval pilot. And when he retired from the Navy, they went to live in St. Croix, I'm not sure how you say that, in the Virgin Islands. And they were destroyed by a hurricane and moved to Florida. But actually, Florida isn't much safer, but they did move. And I think if you're wiped out, you have to think thoughts like that, don't you? Where could we go that's safe? But actually, Joe, Nicola, nowhere's safe, is it?
No, it isn't. And there's lots of people in Florida who are still without water.
Yes, absolutely. And Houston and all sorts of civilized places. And Mexico's disappeared under an earthquake this week. And just the weather and the planet in the month of September is just a raging thing.
Send wet wipes.
Normally, if the water's off, you go in the pool. But of course, the hurricane whipped all the water out of all the swimming pools and replaced it with nasty brown mank.
Yeah, horrid.
Horrid.
We got some friends up here who the people I rent off. There was a Sirocco wind the other day, and it dumped a load of red earth in their swimming pool.
Yeah,
they weren't very happy about.
Well, there you go, Sirocco red earth. Now, give us something more cheerful to end on, please.
Well, I went to my Right Club yesterday. It was a special. We do every 2 weeks, but we did an extra special one yesterday because one of them had a lady called Mary staying with them, who I thought was just a friend, but turned out to be a professor in Southern literature. So
do you mean Deep South Southern?
Yeah, Deep South Southern. Oh, their accents are fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and she was very quiet, but she turned one of the other ladies who knew her said they met when she went on a writing retreat, and this lady was the professor who was helping them to become familiar with Deep South classics. And it was all about the Appalachian Mountains, and you know that whole.
I do. Yeah.
Twanging banjo kind of place, and how poor everyone is and everything, and she was saying that she took them out to visit people, in order to give them a feel for what life was like in those days. She took them out to visit, an old moonshine place where they made moonshine. Interesting story. They used to be able to grow grain up the mountain, but they didn't used to be able to get the grain down the mountain to sell to people who would make it into bread, and that's why they started making moonshine. So it was not only these people had come from Scotland and Ireland, and they obviously drinking is quite a big part of the culture. So when they got there and found they could grow grain, but they couldn't move it anywhere because the only way you could get up and down these mountains was on horseback and donkey, they just started turning it into booze.
Still, yeah, lovely. And actually, if you live that sort of life, boy, would you need a drink.
Well, absolutely. But the other thing was it was a massive part of the economy because they could get booze up and down the mountains quite easily.
More easily, yes. Here's a thought for you, which I think you'll enjoy. If you do become a proper creative writer like that, research trips to places like the Appalachians are tax-deductible expense. Of
course they are. So many things are tax-deductible.
I mean, I have friends who write novels set in Venice particularly so they can go there.
Well, I've committed because it's a piss will get off the pot time for me. I've got this idea for a book, but I've been very daunted. Unlike me, I've been very daunted, and I've really got to do something. So I have committed to the ladies that by next week I will have written something, either an outline or a summary or a characterization or something about some of the ideas I've got for a book.
And will you tell us, given that we have a couple of minutes and you love talking about yourself, why you've been daunted?
It's my birthday.
Why have you been daunted, unlike you? Try and explain. Try and go into that a bit.
Well, because it's such a huge job.
Well, I think because it's important to you, Nicola. Because it's really important to you.
What? Why is?
Well, what I'm saying is you wouldn't be daunted about a project that wasn't important to you. You'd just crack on, wouldn't you? And, pardon the expression, I don't want to say that, it's rude, or it could be deemed as rude. You could just dash it off if it wasn't something where there are these important feelings.
Well, I don't know, Judith.
I don't mean the topic of the book, but, you're out of your comfort zone, aren't you?
I am, because I've written 5 books which felt easy and they were good fun, and they were all factual. I tell you what daunts me. It's the thought of creating the characters and making it all up. I'm very. Whenever we do our free writing exercise in the group, I always go back into my past and write about something that happened to me. Now, this could be the narcissistic tendencies I have, but the thought of writing about people who aren't real is a lot bigger and more difficult than writing about something that's actually happened.
Yes and no. We began the show talking about your hallucination that you were going to drop down dead. You have quite a rich fantasy life. You've just got to get it down on paper.
Well, my real life's a rich fantasy life.
No. Your real life isn't. Your real life is not. But it's in all of us to make up stories, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But there's a lot more to writing a novel book, than there is to writing a business book.
I agree. Totally agree. And I think
characters,
the characters, you're absolutely right. And also lots of my clients write, but you've got quite often to tell the story through their dialogue as well, haven't you?
Well, yes. I mean, I actually had no dialogue in any of my writing at the beginning. And I find it very difficult to commit to giving people names, but I'm starting to get better at that as well. I'm just throwing off a name, the first one that comes to my head.
And also you could change it, couldn't you?
Well, that's a good point, yes. There's a snowflake method that I'm going to follow. So if you're thinking of writing a novel, go and look for the snowflake method. Apparently it makes it very easy to make changes if you suddenly decide to change a character's name halfway through or something like that, or you find out that a part of the plot is untenable. But luckily mine's going to be a sci-fi fantasy book, so none of it will be untenable. It'll all be possible.
Ah, yes, good thinking. So of course it would be sci-fi for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Time travel and sci-fi, that's what I'm doing.
Well, all the rage as well. Good thinking, Snowy.
Well, we'll see how it goes anyway. That's us this week. Thank you very much.
Yeah, not at all. See you next week, darling.
Yeah, bye.
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 Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Bye. You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.